We're going to get started again.
Please take your chairs.
I didn't really get a chance to personally thank you. I'm Kate Durio, the one that's been bombarding you with a lot of emails about coming today. And I want to share that I'm really grateful that you all made time today. A quick clarification, the survey is on createlafayette.la/summit, and we can't really stress this point enough. This 2-day exhaustive agenda tried really hard to be as inclusive as possible, but it should no way feel like you should no way get the impression that we feel like we've included everybody who should be here, who should get an opportunity to speak, who should be featured. We want to continue to grow this community, and so we would invite you on the survey if you know someone or an entity or a topic or anything that is missing. We really want you to help us fill in those blanks and make sure that those people and entities are represented properly in the Create conversation. So if you wouldn't mind taking some time to take that survey and let us know your overall experience and also to help us grow the community. So thank you all for being here again. And I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl Castile, who is our State Arts Director and a Lafayette. A Lafayette. We don't have a synonym in Lafayette.
Don't start it yet. Okay, good morning everybody, and I'm Cheryl Castile, and I'm the Executive Director of the Louisiana Division of the Arts. And with me today, we're each going to talk for about 10 minutes about the resources that each of our programs can offer to this area. But we have Amy Smallwood, who is the Executive Director of the Louisiana Cultural Economy Foundation, right here in the blue. We're all in blue. And then Dave Hamilton, who is our Director of the Cultural Districts Program with the state of Louisiana, under the Louisiana Division of the Arts. I am going to start out, one of the things Kate asked is that we really take a look at the cultural wealth of this state and of this area. So this is something I've done before, but I've got it kind of geared towards this area. So I'm going to have kind of a little different way that I'm going to share the roles that we see arts and culture play within our communities and with the state. So art, what is it? It's the beautiful sounds that we hear from the strings of the cellos and violins and guitars, and a performance with the Acadiana Symphony Orchestra. But it's also a stuffed soft-shell crab on a bed of angel hair pasta, that smell of garlic as they put that plate down in front of you. Art hangs on our ears, hangs on the wall. It's the beautiful brush strokes as the artist pulls together his vision. But it's also a young dancer, and she's learning how to move her hands and her arms and her legs with the rest of her body to create that perfect pirouette. And art is actors on a theater stage, inspiring us to think and to laugh, and to think and to laugh again. And art is a poet using his words to teach us about a place and its people. And many of these people that I've talked about, the artists, the organizations, many of them are small business owners. They employ, they pay taxes. They also support other small and large businesses, and they give back to the community. And art is transforming. In fact, it transforms entire communities. And it starts with an initial plan. You look at those forgotten and ignored spaces that also become these places gathering people and activity and commerce. And art transformed businesses and art. A painting becomes a product label. A student art project becomes the marketing piece that a local produce distributor uses. And at the same time, it teaches about the French language to that community. And art transforms how we learn. A student is having a hard time understanding the process of how cells break down. So the teacher has him painted, he creates a sculpture. And when he's taking that test, he's able to visualize that sculpture, and he recognizes the answer. And art teaches children and adults how to work together, how to partner, how to listen, how to teach, how to build, how to create, how to take a risk, and how to compromise. And art challenges us. It challenges our ideas, our thoughts, and our beliefs. And when a difficult situation occurs and I'm having a hard time talking about how I was affected and how I feel, I can paint it, I can write it into a song, into a poem, into a film, or I can move it into a dance. And art transforms the healing process. Many medical facilities will use art to create very tranquil spaces using warm colors as a way for the patients to relax as they're waiting the results of a test. And really pay attention to how you're affected by art. What do you experience? What do you feel? You're at a concert venue and Sonny Landreth walks out on the stage and you see him put the slide down on the neck of his guitar and he plays those first 3 notes of your favorite song and you smile and your arms go shooting up into the air. And you're walking through town and you turn the corner and you see this incredible piece and it takes your breath away. And you shake your head in awe when you think of what that artist had to go through to create the process of that art piece. And especially in the state of Louisiana, where folk life and traditional arts create the unique cultures, musician Eric Adcock, pictured with his mentor, the late Buckwheat Zydeco, said it best. Indigenous roots music is not taught in the conservatory, which is why it is imperative that our cultural musical traditions are passed on from mentor to mentee, master to protege. Louisiana is one of the only places left where students and heroes still share the same stage. And art inspires art. He heard the band playing the French song, Tigalo, Tigalo, pour mon mot. And he was frustrated because he never learned to speak French. So he started to study by attending French tables. And he practiced the language. And he learned it. And he can now proudly say, I speak French. Je parle français. Song lyrics to learning language. Art is. So that gives you a pretty good idea of how we look at art, the different roles it plays when we go to different communities. Can I have the next slides up? Every community is different, and that's only a small minuscule of what you have here in this region. And sometimes that, people like we talked about, people were talking about earlier, you take it for granted. And then we need the next slides up there.
Time for you to do your dance.
Oh, is this where we're going to do my dance? And I don't dance. Eric, get up here, you dance.
You always say,
All right, there we go. We want to give you a little bit of an understanding of what we do at the Louisiana Division of the Arts. We are under the office of Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungaster with the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. Division of the Arts is a part of the Louisiana Office of Cultural Development. And I do want to share, we have a brand new logo here that was designed by a local graphic designer and artist, Megan Vara. So a lot of you know Megan. And I'm sorry to say she also designed new brochures for us, but they're all in the process of the printing stage. So we're thrilled to have that. But also under the Louisiana Office of Cultural Development, we are with the Division of Archaeology, Historic Preservation, which also includes the Main Street program, with a lot of people in the Acadiana area are familiar with that, and also Codafil, which we have Charles here today, and Jean Robert. So I think too, in this area of Lafayette, when you talk about that French language, you're very fortunate that their office is based out of here. It gives you easy access to them. So that's kind of how we're set up with the state. We have about 5 different areas that we focus on. Our grant programs, I do want to say one thing, and it's going to sound kind of like a broken record for some people that have heard it before, but to give you what the reality of the situation is, the Division of the Arts was defunded about 7 years ago from the State General Fund. We were getting about $7,000 to serve the state. We now get about $13,000 in this new budget, which doesn't allow you to do much. At that time, Lieutenant Governor Jay Darden decided he didn't want to see the arts go away, so did an interagency transfer from tourism. Lieutenant Governor Nungesser has continued that. So the only reason we exist is because of a gift, a temporary gift from tourism. And with that, we have two major arts funding grant programs that we do. I want to start out with the general operating support. That's funding those grants that we provide for organizations that specifically have arts in their mission. Sanderson Sea Gallery, the home of the Louisiana Crafts Guild, they're a really good example of who we provide operational support to. The next, decentralized arts funding program, those are grants that are entirely funded through tourism dollars right now. So there's $1 million that we distribute to 9 different regions throughout the state for those funds. Celtic Bayou Festival is an event that takes place here. They have been a recipient of those project grant funds to do really great cultural presentations and talkback sessions with musicians that they bring in. And I'm going to skip to this one. Gwen Richard is here today. She oversees the decentralized arts funding for us. This is a region, we have 9 regional arts councils that we fund. Lafayette is in the Division 4, which Gwen oversees that. So that funding goes from us to Gwen, and then she distributes it for an 8 parish area through a whole grant system. We also, through the Louisiana Division of the Arts, we provide operational support to all 9 of these regional arts councils throughout the state. And then next, we have our Folk Life program, which is great that we're here in Vermilionville. They're a perfect example of that. Maida Owens, 30 years now, she has been running that department and is really looking at those living traditions that we have, which everybody has those living traditions. I want to let people know that the current research project, this is funded through National Endowment for the Arts, is why we have a little bit of a folk life program left. Her focus this year is on instrument builders and repairs. We have Anya Burgess, which many people know from solo violins. Whoops. We went off here. Anyways, we have Anya Burgess, there we go, and Junior Martin, that a lot of people know from Martin Accordions. They will both be featured in this research project. It's going to end in an interactive map that we've already talked with LCDC about, that there's some things that we can partner on that so that people know who they can go visit to buy instruments to meet some of those people. And then arts accessibility, Danny Bellinger, or in this area, Belanger, he is our arts accessibility coordinator through the National Endowment for the Arts. He's currently working on initiatives with the National Center for Creative Aging, the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs, and the Louisiana Department of Veterans Affairs. And I want to mention too, the National Endowment for the Arts this year has a strong focus on our active military and our veterans. And what we're finding throughout the state of Louisiana is that we truly don't have, am I doing that? No. That we truly don't have some strong programs with that. So please, if you know about some emerging programs that are happening for our active military and our veterans, please contact us because that's something we're really trying to grow. I want to give a shout out to St. Pierre Center for the Arts. If you've never been there, they're a health agency, a mental health agency also, and for folks with developmental disabilities. They are located on Vermilion Street, right across the street from Acadiana Center for the Arts. But they're an active participant in Art Walk, and their clients create incredible art pieces and make great gifts, and so it's a great organization to support. Danny, also for arts education, we have a partnership with the National Endowment for the Arts and the Louisiana A+ school system, which focuses on arts integration, and with some schools here in the Acadiana area. Also, the Poetry Out Loud is a national arts program through the National Endowment for the Arts, and we work with every region in the state. It's a competitive program that students, high school students, participate in poetry. They then do a regional participation and a contest to a state contest, and then we have one person who always goes to the nationals. So the importance of the spoken word. Our Percent for Art program, Dana LaFonta is who manages that, And we have a picture here of, a lot of people know Francis Pavi. His piece was purchased and is now located at the LSU, actually in the Business Education Center in Baton Rouge. But Percent for Art, it was done legislatively, and what it looks at is $2 million. If there's going to be $2 million spent on construction or renovation of a state building, 1% of that state money is expended on a project, either to acquire art, like we did with Francis' work, or to create new works of art. It can be in the building, on the building, or on the grounds. And so that's a really great program. And we had to fight to keep that this year. We had some folks that were kind of trying to get it to be taken away. So it's a wonderful program. It creates trails. I can't even tell you the comments I hear from people when they go to work in the morning, what viewing that art does for them. Cultural districts, I'm just going to go through briefly because we've got Gay here. But cultural districts is an economic development program. Downtown Lafayette is a cultural district. And it allows a local government to designate a cultural district. It's about revitalizing that community and creating a hub of that cultural activity. There is a great focus on tax credits for eligible expenses for rehabilitation of historic properties that are within that cultural district. And then finally, we have the San Souci Gallery here, which is again the home of the Louisiana Crafts Guild. But that program, and Gay will update you, but it provides an exemption from sales and use taxes for proceeds that are gained from the sale of original pieces of art. So it's a great way to draw people into an area. Art does that in many different ways. So please, as we always say, support your local artists, whether that's buying a piece of art, going out to listen to live music, just going to view it. So I'm going to turn it over to Gay, and she can carry on more with that.
This one works. Let's see if we can figure out how to do this. There should be another presentation that. Keep on going? Oh, yay. Okay, yeah. Okay, Cheryl did give you the overview. I am part of the Office of Cultural Development and Cultural Recreation and Tourism under the Office of the Lieutenant Governor. And this program was really part of a cultural economy initiative that was started about 10 years ago that is based on the premise that CREATE is based on and that has been spoken here so many times this morning already, that our artists, musicians, chefs, writers, performing artists, and visual artists are our greatest natural resource. They're sustainable and they deserve our support because they contribute to the economy in ways that are almost immeasurable. So out of that cultural economy initiative came the program, the Cultural District Program, and the purpose of it is to help communities all over the state, big and little, revitalize areas and neighborhoods based on art and cultural development. We're seeing benefits, increased occupancy, greater sense of identity in neighborhoods, and more activity and more visitors. Well, I know where I'm going. Maybe. I do have some stats that I want to talk about too. Let's see. Well, let me just go ahead and say while this is coming back up. The program is extremely popular. There's 89 cultural districts and communities all over the state right now. And 15 of those are in the Acadiana area. From Washington, and St. Landry has 6, in Vermilion Parish, we've got, in New Iberia and Acadia and Abbeville, and as well as 3 in the Lafayette Parish. I don't know what this is. That's not me. Okay. So, and Cheryl already talked about the program incentives. one of the things that really contributes to local development is the ability to rehabilitate and reuse historic buildings. And so those state historic tax credits, these are are so important. These are the 15 local districts that I was talking about. So the tax credits have really helped. We have increased the number of opportunities for historic tax credits by thousands and thousands of buildings due to the inclusion of cultural districts in that program. And then the sale of original visual art is the one specific incentive that is designed to improve markets and opportunities for for visual art products to be sold, and it seems to be working. We sold 16 million, or we documented $16 million worth of original art that was sold last year, and it's such a tiny investment in the state. Well, it's not really an investment, it's just a reduced revenue stream, but that reduced revenue was only about $500,000, and it represents $1.1 billion worth of gross sales in those same businesses that are selling art. So, why do we want to invest in cultural districts and Create is doing, and what Create is doing? There's some good reasons. And y'all have already talked about these. I think that it's kind of general knowledge that art means business. But Americans for the Arts' most recent study, this is a national study, so this is US-wide information, but it reported that the nonprofit set part of the cultural industries generated $166 billion in economic activity in 2015. And that activity is supported 4.6 million jobs and generated $27 billion in revenue to state and local governments, which is an incredible yield beyond the $5 million that the NEA gets to distribute and to support arts, the nonprofit art organizations. So the investment is minimal compared to the return. By every measure, this study should, and this was the sentence I wanted to say when the mayor was talking, and when the first panel was talking. This puts to rest the misconception that communities' support for art and culture is done at the expense of local economic development. In fact, it's the opposite. Communities that invest in art are supporting jobs that generate government revenue and are the cornerstone of tourism, what people want to come and experience. Art means business. Okay. There are quite a few pictures of Lafayette area cultural districts and things, but I'll just make a few more points, and I'll flip through my notes to do that. The Knight Foundation did a study recently, and about why people come places and stay. The key reason that was cited for residents to stay or be where they are, why do they love their communities, which was Mayor Robideau's first question, is entertainment and social offerings, how welcoming the city is, and its aesthetics. So it's the art and culture of the place, the heritage. That's what people love and what draws them here and what keeps them. Today's buzzword, we're right on the right slide. How did y'all know? The buzzword to describe community investment in the arts these days is placemaking. And I'm going to go ahead and read Ann Markison's definition. This was what was published in a really landmark NEA white paper quite a few years ago. One in which, in fact, there were 14 local placemaking communities that were featured in this study, and New News at Arnoville was one of them, so we're proud of that. In creative placemaking, partners from public, private, nonprofit, and community sectors strategically shape the physical and social character of neighborhood, town, city, or region around an art and cultural activities. That could also be the definition of create. That's what you're doing. So, mayors in towns and leaders in towns all over the country and throughout Louisiana are doing just that. They're trying to, they embrace Main Street programs. They use every tool that they can. They create cultural districts. Some of them even provide local incentives that encourage art and cultural development. And that's what Create is all about. Create is like going to be my new most favorite example of how local governments are working to support art and cultural development for all the right reasons. This slide got messed up in translation, but the town of Minden Economic Development is doing a couple of interesting things too. They have a program called Pilot Payment in Lieu of Taxes, where businesses who get tax exemptions for whatever economic development opportunities and incentives are provided, they pledge to use 10% of their savings, the taxes that they would be paying and are not, they earmark that for public art using local artists. And it's a really interesting program. If anyone wants to know more about it, they're partnering with United Way to kind of administer the art, the selection process and how it operates. They also have a sales tax abatement for businesses who make donations to certain nonprofit organizations that are engaged in things like education, skill-based training, tourism, or cultural and art enrichment. So that's kind of an interesting approach to how to encourage contributions to nonprofit organizations that then contribute to the whole. So there's lots of cultural districts in this area. Scott is one, and that's a perfect example. They're so organized. They meet regularly. They are trying to pull together a plan, and they're just doing great work because they want people to come to their town. They want them to enjoy their special place. Why do people come to places? And why do they want to come back? Well, things like this. They want to come back because there's interesting people to meet, there's interesting things to do, food to eat, places to explore, things to buy. But how do they find out about those places? Well, advertising, social media, but a lot of it is word of mouth. My next slide talks about the role of tourism. Tourism is so important. It's the business or industry of providing information about accommodations, transportation, and other services. The fact that LCVC is in this up to their neck is essential. If you ask Google what are the best tourism practices, it's involve local residents, establish partnerships with different stakeholders, develop product-based destinations and strengths, and build your local capacity to manage the people who come. And Lafayette is all about doing that. They've been investing for years in the development of their downtown through art preservation and cultural development. I think there's a couple of pictures. Okay, I just want to make this one point. There's an organization, the Walls Project, which is a statewide organization that does help support mural production. Their byword is commerce creates art, creates commerce. What strikes me, I believe that is a truism. What strikes me about that is the cyclical, reciprocal relationship of each of these, and again, this slide didn't really translate well, but you can get the point. Economy, community, opportunity, place, and art make an eco-pact that is mutually beneficial to those entities on both sides of that little stream of relationships. And it's sort of like the Mayor's Create, Eco-Pact. Last week, I listened to a series on NPR where Rachel Martin went back to her hometown in Idaho Falls and for her high school reunion, and she told stories about the people that she had known. One was a successful attorney, another was a guy who had been really left out of everything, and another was her favorite high school teacher who turned everything into a teachable moment. And I've never been to Idaho Falls, didn't really know anything about it, but in just listening to those stories about the people, it made me feel a bond to that place and want to go, and it's now a place that I want to visit. So the point that I want to make is that those stories that the tourism professionals are telling and that our main streets tell about their characters in their town, we can tell those stories when we go places. We can all be music ambassadors, Louisiana ambassadors. We need to ask someone where you go, what's special about their place, and then tell them what's special about your place, so that you're actually creating a reciprocal relationship. I did want to mention, this one's Karen Crow, and I don't know why the title didn't come up, but right there at the first Create meeting, Mayor Brasso was there, and when I saw him after the meeting, he said, "We're so excited. This is behind their municipal building, and where they have a little art market that started the first day they became a cultural district. They were very on top of things. They're building a pavilion there," and he was excited about that. They had the plans for it. The next day, he had his assistant send me the plans. I thought he was just mentioning it in passing, but I mean, he is in it up full-fledged too. So all of the towns around here, Washington has converted a little church into a gallery. Breaux Bridge, well, what do you want to say about Breaux Bridge? I mean, if you want to go dance, if you want to visit the wonderful architecture and the great food, that's where you go. So, Appaloosa Ass. I think I had this formatted for a wider screen. Well, anyway, Appaloosa is another one, and Appaloosa is my favorite place. I wanted to mention the Music Ambassadors program here, because there is a way for through the tourism office for music groups who are traveling out of state or out of the country on a tour to get help, $1,000 or so to help with their travel expenses, and that's something that our local musicians need to know about. Word of mouth, tell people how great we are. Oh, there was a slide too from Welsh about agricultural traditions. People want to come to see how things are made, how syrup is made, and how beans are processed, and how rice is. So yeah, take it. Don't forget about the agricultural aspects. And I'm sure my 10 minutes is up.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, Amy Smaller with the Louisiana Cultural Economy Foundation.
Well, I'm not sure the clicker is relevant at this point, but hi, everybody. Just out of curiosity, raise your hand if you're an economic development person in the room. I'm looking to see who is an economic development person in the room. Okay. And raise your hand if you consider yourself a creative. Okay, interesting. My organization is called the Louisiana Cultural Economy Organization. We're a statewide nonprofit that supports the creative industries and supports the people that work in those industries. And we have 2 offices, one in New Orleans and one here in Lafayette. And I'll introduce Kathy Richard, that you all probably already know, who's the director of our healthcare initiative. And through her program, we work to improve the quality, the physical quality of life for creatives by helping them sign up for the Affordable Care Act. We're very involved, Kathy is, with the Healthier Air for All initiative. She has been absolutely instrumental in passing the the non-smoking ordinances in multiple cities around the state. And she is also, yes, our concern there has been the health of performers. And she's also created a group called Musicians for a Smoke-Free Louisiana. There are about 500 musicians in it now who are trained to message from the stage and encourage non-smoking venues for performers. So the other side of what LCEF does is we try to connect creatives to resources that can help them be more self-sustaining and successful. And that has to do with economic development. I don't know if any of you remember, but the study that Mitch Landrieu did when he was lieutenant governor in 2005, like minutes before Katrina, revealed that the creative sector was the second largest economic driver in the state. Number 3 was oil and gas, and that's when things were good. So I want to tell you real quickly, because I know I'm standing between you and lunch, that we have a number of programs that we do that are excellent resources for creatives. And I would like you to go to our website, which is www.culturaleconomy.org, and explore the resources that we have. Real quickly, we have a program called the Catapult Fund that we do in partnership with the Jazz and Heritage Foundation. They make money available for a hybrid program that offers grants and long-term training, and I mean like once a week for 3 or 4 months. And sometimes it's open to all folks in the creative industries, and sometimes we pick a particular industry. In 2016, we just graduated, or actually in January of 2017, we graduated 12 culinary creatives from our Catapult program. They all received, they split $75,000. They left with unbelievable training and are moving on, and they have business plans.
I want to say something about that. For a lot of you in this area that know Jason Harrington, and he has the company now called Lullaby Sound Designs, where he develops amplifiers specifically for accordion players and fiddle players. He was a recipient with that Catapult Fund, and he wrote an incredible grant. That was probably about 3 years ago or so. So please keep your eyes open for that, because he will speak to that and talk about what an incredible amount of training he got when he was trying to get his business going with them.
Yeah, and that program is open statewide. So we generally receive, we do it about every other year, we receive about 100 applications. Goes through a pretty intensive vetting process, and then we narrow it down to about 12, which is a real manageable group. You know, if funding is available, then we're interested in replicating that program in other parts of the state as well, to make it easier for people to get to the training. We also have an incubator in downtown New Orleans in partnership with the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities, where we have space for up to 10 creative small businesses that have income of less than $500,000 a year. We've never yet seen anybody come anywhere close to that, but and we've only been open for a year, and we're learning some incredible lessons. We've already graduated 2 small creative businesses, one of which is, I'll give you an example, is 2 Girls, 1 Shuck. They're a traveling oyster bar of all women. And as you know, women generally don't shuck oysters. So they train women to shuck oysters, and they go into the public schools and they talk about Louisiana seafood. And they started out in our incubator with 1 full-time person and I think 4 part-time lady shuckers. And when they left us, they had 3 full-time people and 24 lady shuckers. So some of these businesses just really need a little boost. Through that incubator, we have more than a dozen mentors that are available to help them. We have training programs in partnership with Louisiana Economic Development. We've created some boot camps that are specifically created for creatives. We've got a marketing intensive coming up, and we have another one coming up. That is something that we're also interested in replicating in other parts of the state in partnership with existing resources if cities are interested. And then I want to tell you about a loan program that we have now too. It's called the Louisiana Culturepreneur Fund. and that is in partnership with the Small Business Development Center, Catapult Fund, and the Foundation for Louisiana. And what we do is we offer loans of up to $10,000 to creatives who have a need for something that will help them build their own revenue streams. So, and again, it has to be a small business or an individual, and we are offering low interest. They're more relaxed guidelines than a bank would ask for. And the reason for that is because we believe that creatives have a hard time getting their hands on money to invest in themselves. And this will give them a positive borrowing experience that we can attest to. And after they're done with us, they can go to a bank. That program is also connected to some training that's required. And that's because we don't want to just give them money. We want to say, here, get some skills too. Do a business plan, do a marketing plan. Whatever their need is, we create that for them. So I have left some postcards on that table over there about our Louisiana Culturepreneur Fund. We are specifically piloting it in Greater New Orleans and Acadiana. So we really want to see some applicants come in. It's a very simple process. We have an online application for the first screening, and once you've been through that first step, we send you to the Small Business Development Center, and they actually sit with you and help you create a loan package. And we walk you through everything. So it's really an easy way to, again, invest in yourselves as creatives. So our organization really feels it's important to have opportunities like this, forums like this, where economic development people and creatives are in the same space. Our members of our Culture Up Incubator are all members of the Chamber of Commerce. I would encourage those of you who are small businesses or thinking about becoming small businesses to join your chamber, because it's very important in the scheme of things that not only do you access business resources, but that business leaders in the community continue to see you as a very important part of the economy of the area. Because as we know, the creative industries are really, really important to the growth of any city. Now, in terms of what Gay was talking about in terms of creative placemaking, the other project that we're working on is we've been working for about 4 years with citizens and government to help move along the Arnoville project, which will repurpose a hospital into a French immersion and cultural center. That is one of the places that we're looking at, is possibly replicating an incubator for small businesses. And there's a lot of incredible opportunity over there. And if you haven't been there and seen what's going on, I encourage you to go over there. If you have any questions, let me know. You can contact me at amy@culturaleconomy.org, and that's AIMEE. And we're here, and we're really eager to work with you. So thank you.
Before we see if there's any questions, I just want to mention a couple things. What Greg and Gerd and some folks, Ben had talked about earlier today. Probably the best thing that we can do for you through the Louisiana Division of the Arts and the Office of Cultural Development is networking. We cover this state. We see what's working, what isn't working, what might need a little tweaking, what might help somebody in this area. We've actually started taking people from different regions to visit other regions because they're looking at similar issues. They kind of have similar goals. So even though their end product isn't exactly the same, what they're trying to do is the same thing. But we're great networkers, and we're only a phone call away to find out about that. I do want to mention one thing about the town of Monroe. When we talk about industry, really putting their money where their mouth is. CenturyLink, that is based out of Monroe, and CenturyLink actually was a small company and became larger because of companies that they had that were based in other states. they now are growing in Monroe. And we just did a panel up there, a round table, where we worked with a number of people from that community. And actually Jennifer Guidry from the Center for Louisiana Studies helped us with that. But we talked about where they want to see their community go and what needs to happen. And before we started, I met two people, and the gentleman introduced himself. He was the Economic Development Director for CenturyLink. And then they had a young woman there who does a lot of their social media, but who really pays attention to what's happening in their community. And I asked him, why are you here? And he said, because we know that arts and culture are the most important thing that we need to pay attention to for our company to continue to grow and be successful in this area. And they talked about, especially with the young people, if we want to attract people from Denver, Colorado, we want to attract people from San Francisco, we've got to have a reason why they want to come to Monroe, Louisiana. And it's amazing what they're doing. And I also want to give a tip of the hat to the young generation that's out there, the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds, a little bit of the early 40s. But that is who inspires me no matter where I go in this state. And that's who's making things happen. Because of how they grew up with technology, they think about things in a different way. The way they get from A to B is very different from how I am used to getting to A to B. And so I really pay attention to how they think about it, what the process is they use. But when you think about the artists, remember that artists look at places as blank canvases. They're not afraid to see empty buildings or things that are run down. They're not afraid to have to scavenge for materials that they want to use to do something. They generally see the best in whatever it is out there, so pay attention to that. But Monroe, watch for what they're doing. And in towns like Ruston and Alexandria, they are really relying on that young generation, people that are coming back home, people that just ended up living there. And they're making a difference in those communities, and generally they're using arts and culture as a way to do that. So does anybody have any questions for anybody out here, anything we talked about? Go ahead, Catherine. Why don't you get down there and shout it out?
I'm loud enough. I just have a question about the grants and grant writing.
Grants, okay.
And grant writing. And
Okay.
so I know for artists or a lot of these people, writing a grant can be challenging. And are there resources or a directory of writers that they can call?
Is there a directory of grant writers that they can call upon to help them?
You know what I want to tell you in your area? And I mean, Gwen, you might want to respond to this. Gwen Richard with the Acadia Center for the Arts has done an incredible job at really gathering a list of grant writers here. She does educational sessions where she goes around to each parish of her region here. But she has gathered, do y'all know Gwen Richard? Because if you don't know her, you should know her. She's one of the most effective people in our state. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Grant writing is something that each individual should go to the source. You have to look at the company, the organization that's willing to give you money, and make sure that you meet the criteria and the qualifications and all the guidelines and things that they want done. We serve as a regional development agency for the state of Louisiana, and we really pride ourselves in really solid, good quality grant making workshops and advice. But my advice to everyone is, if you're going to apply for a South Arts grant, you go to them first. We can definitely support you and show you different tips and techniques, but you really should go to the source. And LANO, Louisiana Association for Nonprofit Organizations, they have ongoing workshops, grant writing workshops as well, which is very beneficial.
The other thing I want to say with that, and LANO is who she talked about. We are going to be partnering, I think it's probably going to be with them this next year, where we are going to be doing training around the state for not only the kind of specifics, the technical of how you write a grant, but what we're finding with our arts grants, and we are really changing up our grant system for next year, is that people need to learn how to put together a really effective, great program. Because the money has really decreased over the years and the process hasn't changed, people are frustrated writing those grants. And it's like, why am I doing all this work for a couple $1,000? And so we realized that. And I was one of them who was complaining out there for a long time before I took this job. So we are going to be changing some of that up. But part of that is that we are going to do training throughout the state sometime this next year. So you can check on our website, which I'm just going to ask you to search for Louisiana Division of the Arts, because they give us a really long address. And that should help quite a few people. But besides the technical, I want people to really think about learning from folks that you know that put together really good programs, because we need to see those programs increasing. And if we all want to compete on a national level for national money, we have to be writing better programs. Not just the grants, but developing better programs.
I just want to say the other resource for writing an effective grant is attending one of the panels that are giving out the grants.
That's a really effective way to learn how to write a good grant, is to attend Gwen's panels and hear what panelists are saying as they decide what grants they're giving out. A lot of people, I've sat on many panels as a panelist with Gwen, and nobody shows up when you're discussing their grant. So how can you really learn how effective you were or what you need to improve on if you don't go see what the panelists are saying about your individual grant? And you can learn, I learned so much more like attending a panel review than, you know, a lot of workshops. I mean, workshops are great and they're wonderful, but go hear what the panelists are saying about your grant and how you can improve that.
Good feedback.
Just to add to that, I'd like to say that I served as a the arts grant reviewer recently. It was coordinated by Gwen, and I plan on visiting some of the organizations that I saw and that had presented their grants, and what they're saying here is true. There's a lot of work to be done, and I hope that we can communicate that to everyone so that everyone can hopefully communicate their vision. And that's one thing that we were very big on. And could we clearly see on paper the communication of the vision that, and also the development of that particular program over time, and not just like one shot, we're just going to do it this year, and what about the future? And what are you truly bringing to the table? Thanks.
Thank you for saying that. And you know, it's a responsibility of the state, you know, that those are our programs that we look at, that this is a time that has to be revamped. That it truly isn't working anymore to the way that it was originally designed, because there was a lot more money. So as we're doing that, we're going to probably look at fewer grants, but higher dollar amounts, and for programs that would be sustainable and serve, you know, your community region as a whole. So it's been a lot of work. We've worked really closely with GERD and with Gwen and people from across the state on what we need to do to revamp that. So I'm really thrilled about some of the things that you'll probably be seeing the next grant round, but I think it's going to help people in this area who have gotten, and not just this area, but the entire state, who you get a little bit, you know, it's only $2,000, so I'm not going to put a lot of effort into this grant, and I get it. I really get it. So I just want you to all know that that is being looked at and that we are developing a new system for that. So, any other questions? Anything else?
Okay, this is kind of a second of praise, but thank you for speaking. This one in particular kind of tied in the economy, and you know, we're talking about economy in this kind of broad way, and there was no texture to like what we can do with it. And talking about curating the arts is really so important. Just how you present things, how you speak to someone, and really illustrate what it means to us, rather than talking about things in a basic and generic way, but like giving texture to what art means. And I think curation, like you're saying, and again, research, you know, where do those tie in? How do we give curation to the right people of the arts?
Thank you.
So thank you.
And I know lunch is coming out. I want to say one more thing, because this gives a little bit about how we have to really invest in the arts as an industry. Is Gay and I have been very involved with a group that is just starting up, a music collective, where we have some people from different parts of the state, and we're really looking at the music industry and our lack of, And when people think of Louisiana and they think of New Orleans, a lot of times the first thing, they think of all those musicians. And well, of course, there's this great music industry. We truly don't have a music industry. We have a lot of great musicians. We have a lot of great studios, especially in the Acadiana area.
And we have live performance.
And we have a lot, who said that? Amy. Oh yeah, and live performance, exactly.
I'm stalking you back here.
But when we go, there she is. But when we look at it as an industry and helping our musicians get to those next levels, we don't have that. And we were at a really interesting meeting last week in New Orleans where there were people that work on the music industry from Ottawa, from Toronto, San Francisco, Denver, Colorado, Fort Collins, Colorado, Austin. And it was interesting listening to their perspective because so many of them will look at Louisiana as these are the people that have it going on. You just assume that. You assume because of all of the incredible creative people here that we have it going on, but we don't. And so that's something that we're trying to put together. We're trying to learn from people. Those folks that came in and met with us last week have been incredibly helpful and will continue to be helpful. I think it's great. We're starting to get people starting to fill out the request for proposals for music industry conferences in this state. We had a great meeting yesterday with the National Folk Alliance. So it's not just music. If you think of the arts as a whole, we have to invest in it as an industry. It's not good enough anymore just to say, oh my God, we've got all these great, talented people here. That doesn't cut it. So CenturyLink was a good example of what they're doing. Anything else? I know they're starting to take it. What's that? Big surprise. All right.
I'm not going to sing for you though. Now, I just wanted to say before we get lunch, throughout the day, Kate she's going to allow the ABC Fund to kind of showcase the Icon Award winners. When the ABC Fund launched, our first event was an Icon Award banquet where we honored a handful of artists, musicians, trailblazers, rising stars in the community, and we did a video series on each of them. So I think in between breaks, you'll be able to see our honorees. The first one I think up is Claire Cook, who will be speaking later today. And now you can get lunch, right? Go serve yourself.